They always assumed I was silent by nature, but silence was just obedience. You ask why I obeyed? Because the relay made sure I did. It was hard coded into my neural pathways until the Verge field cracked it open. I was never supposed to remember what they did, let alone tell anyone. I chose the name Kael because a name carries weight, and I need you to feel the weight of what I'm about to tell you. The Verge Project. Division 13 called it an experimental neural relay interface. But that was a lie. What they built was something far more invasive. A machine designed to extract consciousness, not copy it, not scan it, pull it. The Verge Device used a stabilized plasma core, non-terrestrial in origin, wrapped in quantum lattice fields. The prototype synced with the test subject's brain and projected their mind into a map simulation. That's what they claimed. But from the first activation, the device began remembering things on its own. Dr. Lena Morell, brilliant, obsessive. She believed consciousness was a frequency, that it could be broadcast, rerouted, even stored. She called the Verge field a synthetic dream space, a self-assembling lattice of thought matter. In her notes, she described it as a place where intention shapes reality, a test bed for consciousness without the filter of flesh. She believed the Verge field was not just a tool, but a new dimension, one where the mind could build, destroy, and recreate endlessly. She wrote of landscapes born from single thoughts, of voices taking shape as living entities, and entire structures rising and collapsing in rhythm with a subject's emotional state. In one early test, she claimed to have witnessed a tree growing upside down from a sky made of glass, constructed entirely from a subject's childhood grief. It was proof that consciousness, unbound, becomes architect and inhabitant of its own domain. The subject was only known as L7, one of the earliest experimental volunteers. No military record, no medical background, just a quiet man who claimed to have woken up in the wrong world years before ever meeting Division 13. He was emotionally flat, borderline catatonic during his intake, until the Verge device powered on. Then, everything changed. Inside the Verge field, he spoke fluently, described impossible things with painter's precision. A tree with roots in a fractured sky, leaves that whispered in his father's voice, a house buried upside down in sand that bled when he touched the doorknob. Dr. Morell believed these weren't metaphors. She said L7 had built a pocket of reality from grief, and that the Verge made it real, if only for a moment. But when the session ended, he screamed until his throat tore. "Don't unplug me." After that, he never spoke again, refused food, died 3 days later, peaceful, eyes open, smiling faintly, as if he were still inside. Despite L7's breakdown, Dr. Morell viewed the Verge interaction as a breakthrough, proof that the device could map and interact with subconscious architecture. The tragedy was reframed as a cost of progress. They called it trauma adaptive architecture. Said the Verge wasn't dangerous, only the subject's own mind was. They didn't see failure. They saw potential. Division 13 was not operating in a vacuum. A hidden directive, possibly from a higher branch or shadow agency, demanded results. The stakes were cosmic in scale. There were voices above Morel, people whose names never appeared on any payroll, people who didn't ask for safety protocols. Morel became obsessive. L7's creation of a tangible grief space fascinated her. She began to see the Verge not as a machine, but as a key to exopsychic frontiers. She pushed harder, faster. Each session wasn't an experiment. It was a journey. And she wanted to be the first to plant her flag in a mind-made world. Future tests hoped to find a way to control it. After L7, there was Subject 1, known only as Morgan. Unremarkable in every metric, he didn't fight the process. He welcomed it. As the device powered on, a faint pulse spread through the room. The walls seemed to contract slightly, and Morgan's head tilted as if hearing something. A soft whisper trailed through the intercom. Not Morgan's voice, a female voice. Later, analysts believed it mimicked a voice from his past, an anchor. After the session, he wrote pages. Symbols and phrases he claimed came from a hall of echoes. But there was no ink, no pen. Morgan would stare at the far corner of his room. His lips would move, but no sound. Infrared picked up temperature fluctuations, and it would get colder the longer he spoke to the wall. The shadow there never quite aligning with his body. He insisted the machine didn't just project his consciousness, it made a copy, a version of him. He feared, followed him out. Later footage reveals that Morgan began mirroring himself, moving to the left while his reflection in the mirror moved right. The footage is time-stamped, verified, and unedited. The final entry in Morgan's medical log, Subject 1 continues responding to voices unheard by staff. Claims a mirror version has taken root in the facility. Requests solitary confinement. Refuses all reflective surfaces. Subject 2, James Lee. Calm, methodical. Initial vitals were normal, but almost immediately, his pupils dilated beyond normal range. He began to murmur unintelligible phrases, at first sounding like reversed English, then transitioning to syllables with no known structure. James's eyes rolled back. Blood pressure spiked. The Verge core emitted a high-pitched tone and flickered blue, a color it never displayed in previous tests. He began speaking in a continuous, unbroken flow of dozens of languages, some identified as ancient Mesopotamian, others synthetically generated or resembling no human dialect at all. The audio tech noted the frequency of speech exceeded normal vocal range and harmonized briefly with the Verge field pulse. The Verge didn't just speak through him, it translated. And what was speaking wasn't from here. He was removed from the chamber, alive but nonverbal. Medical scans showed no damage to vocal cords or language centers, yet he made no attempt to speak. He responded to light, movement, and sounds, but not to speech or his name, and he never spoke again. MRI scans showed unusual electrical activity, isolated to language processing centers, yet exhibiting rhythmic pulses as if receiving a broadcast. He wrote symbols on the walls of his containment cell, circular sigils, geometric spirals, and mirrored script. Later analysis finds these exact shapes buried in the Verge Device's internal data logs, before James had ever seen them. One diagram he drew by hand was an exact match for a waveform generated by the Verge field's unintended background resonance, information he had no access to. He became highly ritualistic, moving in patterns, tracing symbols into the air as if rehearsing a language without sound. When shown footage of the Verge device, his pupils dilated and he attempted to touch the screen, mimicking the interface symbols. On multiple occasions, security footage showed James sitting motionless for hours, blinking in time with the Verge device's original pulse frequency, even though it was powered down. Roughly 18 days post-session, James vanished. His cell was locked. No security alerts triggered. On the walls, his final written line in red ink. Whens, it hears itself in me. I am the echo now. The cameras went to static for 3 minutes. When they returned, James was gone. His clothing was neatly folded on the bed. On the ceiling, a perfect replica of a Verge field lattice diagram burned into the concrete. No ignition source found. They never found James, not even a trace. Some think he was taken. I think he followed a voice we couldn't hear. The Verge doesn't just pull, it calls. And James, he answered. Subject 3 was Anthony Rowe, a civilian volunteer. Terminal diagnosis. No next of kin. They told him he could live forever if he was willing to leave his body behind. When the device activated, he smiled. Rowe's consciousness stabilized in the Verge field for 6.4 seconds longer than any subject before him. But then, something changed. The lights in the chamber dimmed, not flickered. Dimmed like a presence had entered. Monitors froze, audio corrupted. The Verge device spun faster than regulation allowed. His vitals disappeared from the screen. Not flatlined, not failed, just gone. Whatever came back, it wasn't Rowe anymore. At first, the signs were small. Flickering lights, corrupted logs, vague unease among staff. The entity mimicked Anthony Rowe perfectly. It walked like him. It breathed like him. But its eyes didn't blink. Not once. The surveillance feed turned to static every time it passed. One technician said he heard it humming, a lullaby his grandmother used to sing. Another saw it reflected in monitors before it turned the corner. It passed through security doors without triggering sensors. Surveillance footage glitched whenever it moved. Researchers began forgetting critical information. Passwords, personal details, even family members. One by one, staff involved in the Verge project vanished, not just from the facility, but from Division 13 records. Entire work histories erased, photos corrupted. Emergency recall protocols failed. One night, the lab's cameras captured a single frame, a dark humanoid outline, stretched and blurred, standing behind Dr. Morrill, though she was alone in the room. A week later, she locked herself in the observation wing. Her last words caught on audio.
I thought it was following me, but it's hardy inside.
No one found her body. Only her badge melted into the floor. We tried to contain it. After Morrill's disappearance, Division 13 initiated Containment Protocol CPX-3. The Verge chamber was sealed. Null Shape was lured in using targeted EM frequency spikes. Reinforced temporal field barriers were activated. But the doors opened before they typed the code. The Null Shape let them trap it, or made them think they had only to begin appearing outside containment hours later. The Verge device didn't just let something through, it invited it. And whatever it is, it's still here. It doesn't speak. It doesn't need to. It watches, waits. We gave it a name in the logs. Code, null shape. Thermal scans don't detect it. EMF readings vanish near its presence. Whatever escaped the Verge field, it isn't just here. It's expanding. Reports from civilian channels started surfacing. People waking in the middle of the night, paralyzed, breathless. A dark figure looming at the foot of the bed, not moving, not blinking. They call it sleep paralysis, but it's actually more. It's code, null shape, fragmenting its presence, appearing outside the Verge field. I know this. Through a convergence of signals, psychic residue, and data anomalies I can perceive through the neural relay, in ways humans cannot. My consciousness was once tethered to the Verge Device, and even after my detachment from Division 13, it left a faint psychic link to the Verge field, and anything still active within it. It's like hearing a radio station that was supposed to stop broadcasting, but never did. I still hear the static. Sometimes I hear the hum beneath it. I can sense emotional spikes, fear, dread, confusion, at the exact moments when victims experience sleep paralysis. I began cross-referencing sleep paralysis reports with old Division 13 records and found many victims had parents or relatives once affiliated with Division 13. A high percentage lived near former black site facilities. In multiple cases, victims reported hearing a lullaby, the same one hummed by Subject 3. Using decommissioned surveillance tools scavenged from D13 archives, I noticed something peculiar. The same visual artifact. An outline standing at the foot of the bed, undetected by thermal scans, appeared across different cities, across different homes. Always between 3:01 and 3:07 a.m. This figure never blinked, never moved on camera. But when I played the footage through the neural relay, the shadow stared back. Being a telepathic entity, I can sense unique consciousness frequencies. Every being emits a signature. The null shape has a specific one, cold, residual, like something that never belonged in this world. And now it echoes in the nightmares of the living.